This is peppy.
We're live.
Good morning, everyone. Wake up, wake up. Even though it's cloudy outside, let's have a good time here at Coffee and Pan Dulce. How's everybody this morning?
Good. It is, wow, you're right. Remember last week you were like, God, it's halfway through March and we only have like less than a week left. Wow, it's going by so fast. And
after this Sunday, it's Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, really already? Ooh.
Yeah. This Sunday's Palm Sunday. Then you have it's Holy Week next week for those who celebrate Holy Week, and then Easter Sunday. So wow, already April. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cowden, one of your co-hosts, along with Mama Ruth, Jenny, and Barbara this morning. Stephen is off today. He is probably doing something very important. We know he would never miss this unless he absolutely has to, but I'm sure he'll be with us next week. St. Bernie is here on the corner. Today's topic is Live in LatinX and White America. Not sure where we're going to go with that topic, but I figure we'll try to work with that one. I think
you need to wear your wig.
Yeah. Oh, my bless my heart wig. That's right. I forgot about that. Well,
that would have been fabulous, actually.
Yeah, that
your
would
blonde
have been
wig is amazing.
I haven't worn that in a while. Yeah.
Well, a long time.
It's in this little cajon. I don't know what cajon means, cabinet.
Dresser.
So, yeah, dresser. Drawer. That's right. Yeah, that's right. So when I was in the hotel business, you know what an armoire is, like a TV dresser drawer or something like that. So we were the first hotel I opened. We ordered all these armoires for all the room, and I saw it on the invoice. I'm like, what's an armoire? And then my accountant or whatever kind of explained to me. I said, oh, a cajon. Anyway, yeah, all right. Well, I just digressed. Okay, so let's go around the Brady Bunch screen. Introduce yourself and your imaginary button like we always do. So it gives me time to share us on our social media platforms. Does anyone have the Brady Bunch screen up?
Jenny, Barbara, and myself.
Okay, so let's start, Jenny, please.
All right. Hi, I'm Jenny-Jaymes again, and my button today would be protect transgender children. North Carolina has a horrific legacy of harming transgender people, and they continue it this week. On the 5-year anniversary of HB2, the North Carolina General Assembly introduced a bill in the House called HB 358, which is the anti-transgender piece of legislation called Save Women's Sports Act, which is banning all transgender girls from athletics of any kind and penalizing schools, charter schools, even private schools that compete in the North Carolina system against public or charter schools. It's a heinous and cruel thing for the Republican Party to do. To take away youth sports from transgender girls is not only criminal, it's flat out chicken shit. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think they should all be flogged publicly for going after transgender girls. It is horrific. Transgender girls only make up 1 out of every 400 children below age 18. So if at a school of 1,000 kids, you may have 2 or 3 transgender girls all together in there. And if they all played sports, those 2 or 3 girls in that school wouldn't make a difference in that sports team. Olympics has allowed transgender girls since 2003. You know how many transgender women have qualified for the Olympics since 2003? Zero. This year for the Tokyo Olympics, there may be up to 4 transgender women that may compete and may qualify for the 2020 Olympics out of 11,000 participants this year in the Tokyo Olympics. So North Carolina Republicans, screw you. Screw you on the horse you rode in on. I hate you. This is disgusting. This is cruel. And transgender girls and boys face enough discrimination, enough bullying just to get through life between teachers, administrators, parents, and doctors that all don't take them at their word. And now you're going to take away their sports too. That is horrific and criminal. And I condemn your party. I condemn all Republicans. If you're a member of the Republican Party, I dare you to debate me on this subject. I will horsewhip you publicly, and more importantly, call out your own party. If you're opposed to this and opposed to harming children, and this is exactly what it is, if you're the party of family values, fucking go after your leadership. Do not allow this to happen. This is horrific. Thank God that we have a Democratic governor that's going to veto this. So this will be DOA if it passes the Senate too and the House. But I am livid. I am livid. They are lucky my car's in the shop, or I'd be going up to Raleigh right now. I wouldn't be here on the show. I would be going up to Raleigh, flipping over tables over this. Over 80 anti-transgender children bills have been proposed across the United States this year in response to their grand poobah Mango Mussolini losing. You lost by 7 million votes, you losers. And the reason Governor Cooper won is because of hypocritical, horrific things like this this week. This is why you lose elections, is going after children. You want to win again? Stop attacking children. Stop attacking LGBT people. Stop attacking people of color. Stop victim blaming people, like all the Asian women that got slaughtered in Atlanta and all the poor people that got killed in Boulder, including a police officer. This kind of stuff has to end.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny.
Good morning. I'm Barb Bacon. I'm a healthcare advocate here in South Charlotte. I have to agree with Jenny. I have very close friends of the family that are transgender girls, and they were livid last night. So I don't know what else to say. This is the backlash from losing an election. Who can you pick on, and it's just reprehensible. But so we need a new button, Jenny. We need a new button. And I'm going to go back to my anti-gun violence button after what happened in Boulder. It was 10 miles away from where my niece used to live. She was crying and at least tracked down all of her friends and didn't have anybody that was killed by that suspect, as they're calling him. When's it going to stop? How long ago was Sandy Hook and they didn't do a darn thing? I don't know. I hope President Biden finds a way to get around. If it's an executive order, we'll do that, do something, because it's got to stop. You don't need military weapons in an everyday citizen hand. So, okay, I'm done.
Thank you all. And I do agree with Jenny and Barbara. My son and I were watching some headline news worldwide, and he kind of got surprised, my 13-year-old, this week. We've seen a report where I think it was in Italy, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of two gay couple, two guys, young kids, they were kissing in public, and this guy just went up to them and started, beating them up and trying to kill them and harassing them, and he got arrested. But the report was talking about how they were invading their privacy. And my son looked at me and he said, "That's crazy. How can they do that?" And I said, that's not showing respect for each other and respecting everyone's right. And it hurt me because the couple was from my mother's country, from Nicaragua, and they were visiting Italy. Imagine, that's my country. It's a third world country, going to visit and bringing economy to to Europe, and then the way they're being treated just because they were holding hand and kissing in front of people. I don't want to sound, I don't want to put myself into both lanes. I want to be in the middle. I just want to respect people and have their, I respect their own choices. I probably wouldn't do it, but I don't judge them either. And they deserve that respect. And I do agree with Jenny, where why do we have to take some time? valuable time where there's other special needs in our country, in our state, in our counties that needs more better attention than disrespecting and disturbing people's life.
Yeah.
That's, I agree with that, and I support that button. I also have my imaginary button that I carry very close to my heart every day. It's the gun sense reform.
Mhm.
Y'all know how this country is getting, and I feel like it's getting out of hand with there's no limits on the emissions, the guns, the reviews, how to pass a gun permit. It's not easy, but it's not hard either for us to raise our voice and make something about it, do something. We need to stop that. Also, another button that I picked up yesterday, it's police brutality. We have to put a stop on that. There's no way and there's no excuse. If you're a police or law enforcement, your excuse saying, well, we were following or pursuing a criminal, and you just get your gun out and decide to shoot on someone instead of making the right steps, the way y'all are supposed to be trained. Don't go out there just because there's a colored person out there and just because he has a background history, criminal history, y'all are on the outlook and just decide to terminate his life. That's not right.
Yeah.
Wow, it's going to be a good show. I can tell. Thank everyone for sharing.
Where the Ides of March.
Yes, that's right.
We're all wired for.
And we might be hated for. We might get, we might get booed out there. I don't care. We don't care.
Yeah. Well, my buttons are Medicare for All, Moms Demand Action, Gun Sense Legislation. I still have Joel Oldman's button there. And then, of course, I agree with what Jenny is mentioning. It seems like, and you're right, it's, I've said this before, it's just people within the Republican Party, and that they like to do these legislation things.
Well, Christian,
they're just occupying a seat. They don't know what they want.
Yeah.
This isn't just the Republican Party. This is the Republican voters too, because here's the thing. As a group of people, they're enabling this hate. Mm-hmm. So if you're continuing to vote Republican and you're continuing to put people in, so we've gone through this bathroom bill, chicanery and fuckery since 2016, since North Carolina was the first state to do that. Yeah. And so that's been 5 years. It was 5 years this week. And every year there is an multiple. Last year there was over 60 anti-transgender bill. We're up to 80. I don't even know if we've had 80 days this year. And so, the thing of it is, the Republican Party is supporting this. By now, the 2016 bill wasn't a one-off. It didn't. North Carolina tried it. It blew up in the courts. It blew up in the public, and they got their hands spanked. Now, Texas followed suit in 2017, and so on and so on and so on. So this is a pattern, and this is a pattern of narcissism and abuse. And the Republican Party is a terrorist organization. When you do this, when you terrorize kids, that's a full stop. You want to come at me, I'm a big woman. That's fine. Come after me. Come after me. Try to legislate adult transgender women and see how that works for you. But when you're coming after kids, I don't care who they are, black or brown, trans, whatever. And that is a level of cowardice. Sure. And as we say in Texas, chicken shit. Yeah. It's just chicken shit. And I'm at the point where I can't play nice about this. This isn't something that I go, well, that's politics. No, that's not politics. Yeah. It is a level of cowardice. And that's all
Jenny,
it is.
Yeah, Jenny, I want Mama Ruth to jump in, and then I just want to say something, then we'll start the show.
That is crazy because, they're hurting our kids' feelings. And most importantly, there's so much going on out here in our country about obesity and stuff. Why are they preventing and wanting to prevent our kids from playing sports and stuff just by a stupid gender something? My husband played softball and it was co-ed. why they didn't do nothing about that. Why don't they worry about that?
Yeah.
Men and
Exactly.
women.
Well, Jenny
Exactly.
mentioned,
It's the stupidest thing ever.
yeah, Jenny mentioned that on our show a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about transphobia, or was it last week? And
That was
about
last
how,
week.
yeah, interestingly, they usually only pick women's issues. They don't pick on the transgender men as much. So what I was going to say is, I don't know how everyone feels about this, but I'm all about an eye for an eye kind of person. And so what I've always said, and I said this during the LGBT Democrat Zoom call, I think last month, when one of the representatives was on the North Carolina General Assembly was on, and they were talking about this possible bill and so forth. And, I'm kind of like Jenny, where I get to the point where I'm like, this chicanery and the other word that she uses. And I was like, why don't we do an eye for an eye? I didn't say eye for an eye, but why doesn't the Democrats propose bills whenever the Republicans, or whenever they propose stupid bills like this? Why don't we propose a bill too, saying something that is so outrageous against them? If you go to church on a Sunday, you're going to be put in jail. That's a stupid bill, right? That's a stupid bill. Let's pass it.
You got to keep in mind, it's not only Republicans. If you think about it, it's about a religion mentality, where some of our Democrats that are very religious as well, they're and they disgrace, LGBTs.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree. And that's what I'm saying is that, the Democrat, we need to start like doing eye for an eye. Every time they propose a stupid bill, we propose a stupid bill every time. And so it gets so outrageous that people start going, y'all need to stop,
So we're going to be playing that. Remember the tug of war? The tug of war.
Yeah. Of course, I get the Democrats that say, well, we don't want to drop to their level. Well, that's why sometimes we lose elections, is because sometimes you just got to fight. And so, all right. So, but we could have we should have an entire show, but we also are going to try to get together some former guests of ours. We're hoping, Cal Kirby, if you're listening to this, that you'll be on that show. We do want to have a show about not specifically about the mass shootings or the Boulder shootings and the Atlanta shootings, but about President Biden's initiative to ban assault weapons. We'd like to have a special show during the evening to really talk about that and how we feel about kind of about that. So with that said, let's salute to.
Was it here or South Carolina who's trying to extend, or is it Biden's?
I think
that is trying to extend the background checkups and to get the license for gun permits and all that.
I think that's what Biden's proposing. Is that correct? Does anybody know?
I'm not sure. I've heard it, but I haven't paid attention where exactly.
There's 3 or 4 different things that Biden and Kamala Harris was on several talk shows this morning.
I think it was due after the Atlanta shooting.
Yeah.
Well, here we are now. We have Boulder.
Yeah, now we got Boulder. So, Jenny, you want to say something before we salute?
Well, one quick thing about the shootings is I think they're going to try to revive the anti-semi-automatic assault weapon ban that lapsed in 2004 during George W. Bush's presidency, and they let that twilight out.
AR-15s.
AR-15s. AR-15 is a specific assault rifle, but assault rifles in general, and high-capacity clips, things like that, bump stocks. That's the one that category of guns
shooter used.
Yes.
Well, actually, there's been quite a few of the major shootings. The Pulse Orlando shooting was an AR-15 type gun. Now, they're not always necessarily an AR-15. They can be an assault rifle. AR-15.
So is South Carolina
a specific manufacturer. Yeah. There's a list on Instagram that shows.
It's disgraceful that we can name all these shootings, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big part of it. Is I think they're trying to find ways to curb it. They also need to fully fund the ATF.
We should have rights. We should have rights only for regular pistols to defend ourselves, not those massive weapons.
Well, that's something that we should talk about.
The Bureau of Alcohol. The Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms is grossly underfunded. They have very few employees to actually conduct these deals. So one of the issues, and I'll be real quick with this, is, and I saw a Democrat that brought this up yesterday, that said, if you really, really want to help with gun control, you have to have this funding and the staffing. So when we propose all these new ideas about background checks and all this, if you don't have the infrastructure, again, the Republicans have grossly strapped the ATF's ability to actually function as an organization. We go out and buy $150 million fighter planes that don't fly right, but we'll underfund an organization that, if we want to protect the United States, they're the front lines, the ATF.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about it for a second.
That's a very good point.
You can't
And
fix
actually,
stupid.
well, yeah,
Let's
you're
save
right.
all that for our next show about the
That's
gun.
that's right. So
Mhm.
hopefully we'll have a special show, but let's get this show started. If you do have your coffee or whatever you're drinking this morning, let's salute to Coffee and Pandusi. Salute to our
Mazel tov.
neighbors. Yes, and also we want to thank our Pandusi sponsor, Manolo's Bakery. I'm showing you that side because I ate half of it this morning. And so
Looks like there's been a little mouse nibbling on that.
this is my new favorite one. It's a really nice sugar kind of cookie that they've got. So Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue. Please visit your local Black and brown businesses or all small businesses during our global pandemic. And I'm sure they're very excited with the new governor's guidance that starting Friday at 5 p.m., I believe. A lot of places are opening up to 100%, and some places up to 50%, and bars up to 50%, I believe. Or there's all kinds of.
Some are different
100
staggers.
outside.
It's 50, 75%, and 100 depending on the situation.
Yeah. So,
but I gotta say, Manolo's Bakery, as somebody that's been there several times, both because of the show and just because I wanted to buy stuff. Their food is phenomenal. So if you really want to support locally owned businesses, buy small, buy local. Don't buy from the Amazons and the Targets and all that. Try to find ways to buy from local businesses, especially Black and brown businesses, because they were hurt the most by the pandemic. And statistically, they got the least amount of COVID money too across the board. So very, very sad statistics. And many of that came from the LGBT Chamber of Commerce as they did a quick survey of local Charlotte businesses. Again, Black and brown communities got left out of economic recovery and economic help that typically those communities are always underserved, which is very, very sad. That's kind of a statement about us.
Sure. Yeah. Well said, Jenny. So we have gone almost half our show, and we're going to now we need. So
we gotta do current events sometimes.
No, we actually should just do like the first 10 minutes of current events.
Our show will be extending into a 2 hours presentation.
Extravaganza.
Barbara's got to get.
I gotta get my tooth fixed.
We should have a mid-year Festivus. We should have a mid-year
that's
Festivus.
Right. Yeah, mid-year Festivus.
We shouldn't just have a Festivus once a year, but we should have a mid-year.
That's right.
Festivus.
We should have
because part of the Festivus is Grievousing.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, I also thought about having maybe another chancla show, during the summer when we're actually wearing chanclas. So for those, okay.
I'm wearing chanclas today.
That's right.
That would be good to do that right before Memorial Day.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Because that's the official start of the summer is Memorial Day weekend.
That's right. Okay, so let's talk about our topic, living Latinx in white America. Just some interesting statistics, and let's try to keep our answers within 30 seconds so we can get the next 30 minutes quickly are moving.
Good luck.
Yes, so.
I'm just here to find out what is living as an American. Let me know. I want to know.
Well, that's what we want to talk about. Or is there even such a thing? Okay, because I'm starting to think, all right, so the topic is living Latinx in a white America. The census, the 2020 kind of spot census said, or 2019, that 1 in 5 Americans is Latinx. And those are the ones that identify themselves as Hispanic, Latino ethnicity. Now, there may be more that don't check that second box of their ethnicity. They may just check white. They may not go down to, they may be 3 or 4 generations where they don't consider themselves, anymore of that and this ethnicity anymore. So we don't know that. But so the question is, as a Latinx individual, Latino, Hispanic, whatever the term you prefer to use, Latina, when you're talking to a woman, a lady, is it difficult to live in America as a Latinx, or are we really, is that a generational thing? Are we really so assimilated now that there's not really a thing? Or, I mean, the reason I was thinking about this was, if 1 in 5 Americans are Latinx, of Latinx ethnicity or Latinx heritage, and when we haven't even included the other ethnic groups or minority groups involved in there, we're looking at least, I think I can't remember one of the shows we had, we mentioned about how America will be a majority minority country by, I think, the next 10, 11 years. I can't remember. And one of the reasons that people, and that one of the reasons that people, and specifically Republican Party, when they're passing all of these voter suppression laws, they know if they are a white supremacist type of individual, their days are numbered. They're just trying to extend it as long as they can, and go down fighting, so to speak. So, which is kind of sad because we have not embraced, they don't feel comfortable, I guess. So are we really living in a white America anymore, or are they living our world now? So I guess that's kind of, I don't know if that's too philosophical this early in the morning after everything we've talked about.
I mean, I think there's a couple subjects there. One of them would be, depending on how many generations, say specifically Latinx families, how long they've been in this country. If they've been an old San Antonio family where the border just moved on them and they were, there since before the Texas Revolution, they've been there since the 1820s or something. I don't think that they feel any different. I mean, they've been there so long, those old San Antonio families versus somebody that maybe is a first generation American born, where their family came from, Nicaragua or El Salvador.
Hey, Jenny, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just want to follow up on what you just said, because a lot of people who live in Charlotte who don't really understand kind of like the Southwest United States, a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of families were in that land before it became the United States. New Mexico, California, Texas, San Antonio, those areas. So you're right. There are a lot of Latinx or Hispanic or whatever type of term you use, families that have been in old San Antonio, like you said, old San Antonio families that have been there for generations, even before Texas was its own country. And they don't consider themselves to be the outsider. They consider everyone else have kind of, so
they do.
So,
I mean,
go ahead, because I want to explain
different.
that to people, because in Charlotte, where it's new, they don't understand that a lot of families have that. So go ahead.
San Antonio, specifically San Antonio, has always been a hub of commerce in South Central Texas. But when it was a territory of New Spain, then Mexico, then it was its own country in 1836.
Mm-hmm.
But Texas wasn't a part of the United States till 1845. So there was centuries of people living that were Spanish and Mexican descent that lived there that had ranches and businesses, and people think Texas was just some primitive, outlying territory. But those Spanish missions that formed San Antonio along the San Antonio River have been there a long time.
Yeah.
And so by the time Texas joined the United States in 1845, I mean, some of those families probably been there 5, maybe even 10 generations.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the original Texas/Americans,
Mm-hmm.
So San Antonio politics and the way it looks as a Latinx community is so different than say Charlotte, for example.
And
It's a
El
very different
Paso's like,
attitude, everything.
yeah.
El Paso's that way too.
in El Paso, there's New Mexico, a lot of the big cities there, they're very, it's very Latinx influence politically. For those who watched that documentary that I mentioned a couple of during Hispanic Heritage Month, it was talking about the Latinx in America, and in New Mexico, there were actually reverse riders. The Mexican people of Mexican heritage, when the Anglo Americans tried to come in and take their land, they actually the Mexicans put hoods on and attacked them and scared and chased them out.
Wow.
And it was a very interesting little
White
history.
people invaded their space,
Yes, exactly.
and now in Texas, for example, New Spain and Mexico paid to bring Europeans down. Predominantly a lot of German new arrivals, because it was almost impossible to buy land back east. And so they offered really, really cheap land because Texas has so much of it, to lure them down. And then that was basically kind of what started, the Texas Revolution, because they ended up with so many white interlopers there, new arrivals, that they said, well, we'll just take this. we'll just like a typical colonizer attitude, like, screw it, let's grab some guns and let's run Mexico out of here, but it's horrific. It's a horrific part of our history, but it did happen. But yeah, I think when you're talking about the Latinx community as an outsider of that being white, I see my family as a reflection on one side of the family being there multiple generations, and my dad's side of the family, I'm only a second generation, born in the United States. And so I see what my grandparents went through as being new arrivals. And I think you have two different conversations for the Latinx community and how they get viewed by the white community, because as you said, you didn't know you were really Latinx till you got to North Carolina. And how cultures that, like the North Carolina culture versus the Texas culture. The Texas culture, the Latinx community was there before us, so they're really, you don't have that much of a clash there per se, like you have here, where I grew up with the Latinx community. I didn't know that they weren't the dominant culture as a little kid until I moved away from San Antonio, and I was like, what's this racism? Like you just didn't see it in San Antonio that much because it's 60% Latinx. And so if you're gonna be racist there, you're gonna be kind of stupid. I mean, because you're the minority as a white person. It's only 38% white. So, it's a different lens. It's weird.
Sure. So hey, Barb and Mom Ruth, anybody y'all want to jump in? What do you think? I mean, how do you feel? I know it's different here in Charlotte, but Barbara, where you grew up, I mean, I'm sure things have changed since.
I told you several weeks ago that the verbiage we use, we're a lily white community, and that's what I grew up in. But over the weekend, when I was talking to my family, my brother said, well, that's really not true. When my parents were building a house, we rented a little house way too small for all of us, but and the street behind us was mostly what my brother can be a racist. He says, well, they were all Mexicans. And I said, yeah, the Beasleys and whatever. And I just forgot about them because I grew up with them. That we were there for like 3 years, I think. My grandfather and my uncle and my dad were building a house. So, oh my God. But anyway, I forgot about that. But basically, when I would say like from age 2 to 10, lily white. But I think the change there. But I guess when you said at the beginning of the show that 1 in 5 is Latinx, I expected it to be a much bigger number, but I think maybe I'm including the Black community as well. But in speaking with Judith, when they were doing the census, pockets of neighborhoods are just surprisingly different than what they thought they would be. So I don't know. It was the biggest change for me personally was when my company got bought by DuPont and I had to move out of Illinois and move to Delaware.
Mm.
Number one, I'd never been a city person before. And number two, I never realized that there were that many Black communities in Delaware. I didn't even know about the riots that they had just had 2 weeks before I moved there. So talk about being ignorant of other regions in the US. It wasn't safe for me to walk out of the hotel by myself. And I'm like, what? I didn't know what was going on. So I guess I'm just surprised that the numbers aren't bigger, because when we have discussions with, especially with my one brother, he said, pretty soon we're going to be the minority. And I said, we already are.
Yeah, and I also think it's a generational thing as well, because for an example, it's 1 in 5, but when you go down to age groups 18 to 35, it's like 47%
Right.
is or 51% is Black and brown. Like just here in Charlotte, North Carolina, the CMS school districts are majority minority.
Right.
The majority of children in K through 5 or 6 are Hispanic and Black, are Latinx and Black. And then, as we get older, the population, and actually, according to the census, and that's what's happening in North Carolina, the Latinx community is the fastest growing demographic. And within that, they're not coming from, they're not immigrants. They're actually just coming from other states. So they are, what normally we would consider immigrants or maybe undocumented people coming here. There are some, but the majority of them coming here are just moving here from other states, just like any other demographic. And so I mean, I'm curious. I mean, because I always look at it through my lens. But Mama Ruth, growing up in San Antonio,
if we really think thoroughly, in decades and centuries and stuff, we come up to the bottom line where if everyone would have to be forced to get a DNA, they would have a drop of blood of Latin America. So we got to keep in mind, when Columbus came and discovered all this and conquer all this, the only persons that were in this, I would say, village of USA were the Native Americans.
Yeah, the indigenous,
But you know what? Where did they come from as well?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
across the barrier strait, I think
at the end of the bottom line, we're all a mixture.
Yeah.
And everybody, whoever, like we were talking earlier about tug of war, they're trying to fight for something that doesn't even belong to no one, because we all share. Believe it or not, I'm anxious to get my DNA done.
I just took mine. Yeah.
I probably have Asian. I probably have Black blood.
Yeah.
I have, something inside of me, because there's a mixture everywhere. So there's no meaning about living an American lifestyle.
Yeah.
We can't say that, because I personally, even though I'm first generation living in the United States or born in the United States from my family, I don't feel, I mean, it might sound a joke, but I don't feel American. And I think I've mentioned it to y'all before.
Yeah.
I feel just a person that lives in the United States. This is my country.
Yeah.
And, I can't help it. It's my country.
Yeah. And so, interesting what you say, and I piggyback on that, Mama Ruth. And I'm curious with Jenny, because Jenny has an eye out for the millennials and the baby Zs, or I forgot what you call them, Jenny. But do you think this is more of a generational conversation? Baby boomers maybe have talked about this, Gen Xers, but millennials and below, this is not a big deal to them. I mean, it's not like, am I living in white? America's just America. America is my friend. America is LGBTQ. America is this. Is this?
I have to tell my boy that he says, whenever they ask him, he's like, oh, I'm Mexican. And I'm like, baby, it's not about being Mexican.
Yeah.
That's the way they answer. Oh, I'm Mexican. And I'm like,
Mhm.
don't confuse people. You're not 100% Mexican, you know. First of all, you have half blood Nicaraguan, half blood
That's
Mexican,
right.
but you were born in the United States, you know.
It's whoever's winning. It's whoever's winning the FIFA at the time. That's who he claims. Mexican, Nicaragua, America, United States.
Now in our house, we're not talking about culturally.
Yeah.
We're not only Hispanic food eaters.
Yeah.
We enjoy eating
Mhm.
soul food. We enjoy eating greens. We enjoy eating barbecues. We enjoy eating, you know, baked chicken with mashed potatoes and macaroni and cheese, ribs. I mean, as well as tacos, crispy tacos, enchiladas, Mexican rice. We have a mixture of, because this is our country and we just
Yeah.
love to taste different cultures' food.
That's funny you say that. I remember growing up and in Texas, and I remember someone asked me when I was younger, you know, about like, what do y'all eat? You know, like, we eat whatever dad cooks. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
do y'all eat enchiladas every day? No, you know how hard it is to make enchiladas?
No,
And I think a lot of
I don't
it,
have time to cook. I run to Harris Theater, get me a baked chicken, some prepared
Exactly.
and mashed potatoes, bump it in the microwave, and here's the dinner.
That's
Yeah.
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
I think
not
a
all
lot of the,
Latinos do that, but
Yeah.
hey, I'm a U.S. citizen.
I mean, I think a lot of it is rooted in obviously ignorance, and in I think the younger generations obviously have benefited from the capabilities of the internet
Yes.
and quite frankly, a cultural simulation, because, you know, 3 or 4 generations ago, I mean, in the 1960s, it was still illegal for a black person and a white person to get married in certain states.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Oh,
wasn't that long ago. I mean, when we're talking about the Loving versus Virginia ruling, that was only about 51, 52 years ago, when that happened. So we're not that far removed from these cultural and racist divisions, with so many families, and you know, so when you think about that, but whereas the baby Z's, the millennials, have grown up in a, you know, post-Reagan America that has seen those break down in pop culture. You know,
Yeah.
you see mixed couples in pop culture as being normal, and you wouldn't have seen that in the 1950s or 60s. And so, you know, the Kardashians, you know, which have been an iconic, whether you like the family or not,
Yeah,
you
they're going off
engage
TV
what's going
when.
on. You know, you're almost you are almost, you engage your temperature of your country's cultural ideals by your pop culture icons. And the Kardashians, there's a lot of things they do wrong, but there's a couple things they break down racist barriers of seeing the Kardashian girls predominantly dating African American men,
Yeah.
and normalizing it, normalizing mixed families, normalizing that, hey, there is no division between us, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about the internet, is saying, like, asking stupid questions, like when you were a kid, Christian, and say, would y'all eat enchiladas and tacos every night? You know, I'm like, no, I go to the same grocery store as you go to. And I get the same weird questions too about being trans. Like, no, I'm not a pod person. I don't go and hang upside down at night or sleep in a coffin or something. I'm not a vampire. You know, or at least as far as y'all know. But these weird, they come from a space of ignorance. And it's usually people
Like fairy
above
tales.
40.
It's like being
You
carrying
know,
fairy tales from their grassroots parents or the
Mhm.
ancestors.
Yeah.
People under 35 never ask me weird questions. I mean, almost never. It is
Because
older
it's the norm
people.
for them.
Yeah.
They're you know, they went to school with somebody that was trans, or they know somebody that's trans. They work with somebody that's trans. They grew up in the internet age. Are the people 40 and up that remember a world before, you know, Google machines and all that? They're the ones that struggle the most with anything that's visibly different, whether it is skin color.
Jenny, you got to keep in mind that was a taboo in the past.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
taboo
yeah.
for everyone. Like I mean, I've seen movies where, people transgender, LGBTs and stuff, they will be in their own little world. They had their own little club. They weren't mixing with everybody. And then kids are walking with parents, and the parents will be like, you don't hang out there, you don't talk to them. They were creating that mentality. So once they grow up and they kind of view everything around, like myself, I'm over here questioning, hey, this is not what they told me. This is
Yeah.
not the reality.
But
This
don't
is
you think,
different.
yeah, but Jenny and Mama Ruth and maybe Barbara, when I was jokingly, well, I'm not really joking, but about the eye for an eye kind of attacks. So when the Republican, let's say the North Carolina General Assembly, when the Republicans are wherever they are, propose legislation like what you're talking about, Jenny, when you started the show. I mean, the eye for an eye, there should be ads, whether they're social media ads or something, attacking people on how crazy that is, because just 10 years ago or 50 years ago, those same people were saying, don't touch a Black person, or don't touch a Hispanic person, or don't. So we have to make them look so crazy and foolish that your average everyday person looks at him and goes, you're right. I mean, just not too long ago, we were talking about Muslim terrorists after 9/11. Remember during that time period?
Oh, I mean, and people were, it's one of these crazy things. If you look at some of the advertising from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, for example, and how racist they were, openly racist. We don't realize we have come a long way.
Yeah.
But also too, I remember in the 1980s when they were doing a lot of the newer ESL classes and the new programs and things of that nature, and how racist people would be. Well, they need to speak English. It's America, damn it. They need to speak American. In fact, a lot of people say they need to speak American. I go, what's
Yes.
American? Like I'm born in the United States and I'm white. I don't know what I'm speaking American is. I know what English is.
Well,
English is a foreign language to this land too.
They are speaking American. They're speaking South American or Central American.
Yeah, but it was based on racism.
Yeah.
It was based on shaming people to speak their family's native tongue. And you see it now. You still see people that I saw a news story just a couple months ago where there was a Puerto Rican family. I can't remember where it was, but they were speaking Spanish for a little bit.
Yeah, and someone got
and some white people got all bent out of shape, and there was like this YouTube confrontation, and all that. And I'm going,
I was in New York.
First of all, I was in New York, in New York of all places too.
Yeah.
It is so bizarre that people get so bent out of shape because people speak Spanish or speak whatever language that they're comfortable
You know what?
in.
Native Americans speak indigenous. They have their own language.
Yes, they do.
We don't understand.
Just because we don't understand it doesn't mean that we're gonna, banish them and bully them or anything like that. So that is, like Jenny said, part of ignorance. That is lack of exclusion. There, nobody in this country wants to be inclusive.
Yeah.
Imagine if they turn around and say, you know what, from now on, we're only gonna eat American food.
Yeah.
What is that?
People would go crazy.
Food?
What's American food?
It has been creative and brought into our country. Hot dogs are not originally from here. Hamburgers are not originally from here. French fries are not originally from here.
So Mama Ruth is giving you a sample of what our show is for next week. Really, our show next week is What is Real Southern Heritage? And we want to talk about, what is real Southern? Is there such thing as Southern heritage?
I don't know.
I mean, there's this myth.
We eat pizza and we think that's an American plate. That is not an American food.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's not from New York.
It's
Not
a
even
New York
from New
food.
York. Y'all know that's not. It's spaghetti.
Hey, what about Chicago pizza? Wait a minute.
I would like to know what's the original. What's the original handmade from USA? What is the original? That doesn't have no pattern, that nobody copied, that that is originally from here. Like us, Mexicans have the original tacos.
Yes.
Everybody tries to copy them, but the tacos are from Mexico.
Well, I would say that, yeah, I mean,
Not from Taco Cabana.
No,
oh, you're making me hungry now.
oh, that carne
Yeah.
guisada taco. Oh my goodness.
So, can we go
Or the
back to
bean and
something Ruth
cheese
said?
with
Sure, go ahead, Barbara.
It's very interesting that you bring up the Native Americans, because when my uncle was in the war, he worked on a team that they were trying to break codes for the Germans, and they used the Native American
Yeah.
people to help break those codes, and the Germans could not understand them, and they were critical to the
Mhm.
war effort, and
I
they
s-
never got any credit for that. There was a brief thing, and it just broke my uncle's heart.
There's a
Because
there's
he got credit,
Yeah.
but the men that he worked with didn't, and I'm like, wow.
there's a movie that I own that I watch about once a year, and anyone's welcome. It's Wind Talker with
Yes,
and that what's his name is in it. Oh, I forgot. You know who I'm talking
yeah,
about.
I know who you mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't ask
so-
me, Nate.
I think they use the Apache language because
Yes.
they don't have a written language, so there was
Mhm.
no way for specifically the Germans to
Mhm.
even understand, and the Japanese as well,
Yes.
to understand what they were saying. So it was an unbreakable
Nicolas
code
Cage.
because it's
Nicolas
all
Cage.
oral language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
was great.
We only have about 7 minutes left, and I know Barbara has to jump off quickly. So I think basically, we may be answering our own questions about our topic, living Latinx in white America. I mean, I kind of agree with Mama Ruth. I don't really feel like I'm living Latinx, other than I know I'm Latinx here in Charlotte, because people remind me all the time, where are you from? Well, I'm from Texas. No, where are you from? That's code from, something else. But I mean, I don't feel, I just, my family, my grandfather always taught us, I mean, he's a World War II veteran, and, taught us to assimilate and so forth. And every Sunday we've been on a Zoom call for since over a year now.
Yeah.
And I listened to my uncle in Arizona, my other uncles and them, and everyone, it's just, we're so assimilated into society, and everyone does their own thing, that it's, I don't, and then when we go out to the country and I visit family that's in the country, they've got their little thing going on, and I always feel like those people who, like what we're talking about, that we would see on angry about someone speaking another language or whatever, I look at them and I go, why do you care? I mean, you're just showing that you have no
Tolerance.
I don't even know how to, I mean, because I know if I say it, it's going to make me sound bougie, and Jenny always calls me a snob. But, when I see this ignorance from individuals, I want to say, do you not realize how stupid you sound and you look? And not only that, but now you look to the whole world, you look stupid and dumb, and so, and,
Does it bother you when you say, I'm from Texas, and they're like, no, where are you from? Number one, why is it any of their business? Why do they want to
Yes.
know? And I don't understand. Why do you care?
Yes.
Why?
Well, it depends the way it's being asked as
Yes,
well.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that,
Well,
but I mean, they don't say that to me. Why do they say that to you? I've had people say, well, you're not from here because I can tell by the way you talk. I said, so what? And I walk away from them. I don't want to have that conversation. If that's
Yeah.
you're questioning me like that, you aren't somebody that I'm going to even give any more time to. And I am rude sometimes. I just walk away.
Barbara, you mentioned something that's going to require an entire show and a whole years of therapy, because I equate, when someone asks me or says something to me here in Charlotte, I equate, do they do the same thing to Andrew? And then I think, is it just because I'm prettier? Is it just because, what is it? and many of the times I think, well, maybe they're just being friendly. But then there are many times where I think, they didn't ask you that, that, and
Right.
it's obvious that, it to me, but because it's always been asked of me, I've just gotten used to it. I don't know if that makes it right, but
No.
maybe if I had grown up with someone in my family that was never asked that, because my brothers were probably, none of us, we probably had the same experiences. I don't know. That's a great question, Barbara. You're right. It depends on how it's asked,
Right.
but I think I tell you guys this story, and I know I got to keep this really short because we're going to run out of time. Prior to COVID-19, there was a person that I sat with at the sports bar who is a native Charlottean, and she has been here forever. Her family has been here forever, and she's kind of an older lady. She's a huge Panthers fan, season ticket holder, and she always tells me about she's an American, and always
That was another thing that I was gonna question.
yeah, she would
Why
say
do we have those type of
an
people?
American.
Because that's the way they were brought up. They were,
Well,
if their elders weren't born in the United States
Yeah.
and they assimilated here, they are proud to be Americans and they want everybody to do what they did. And that isn't appropriate anymore.
Yeah.
Well, when I took my CLA class, it was very shameful where, we learn about the history of Charlotte, how a lot of native of Charlotteans were removed or they were forced to leave their place of living because they were building the new buildings.
The Brooklyn
Yeah.
Heights of Brooklyn. Yeah.
So that's when I started learning where a lot of our elders and even young kids, they'll tell you, oh, I'm Charlottean.
Yeah.
And I'm like, like they make it seem like we're over here trying to take a spot away from them or we're invading them. And I'm like, I understand, I feel Charlottean as well. I've been living more than half of my life in Charlotte.
Well,
I don't like here being under 21.
I can't tell you Jenny and I's joke about that. We've had off camera conversations whenever I can't speak for Jenny, whenever someone says I'm a native Charlottean, and my inside voice says, and you're proud of that?
I mean,
so those who are watching us,
okay, so from now on, when I'm gonna answer, whenever they ask me, I'm gonna say I'm a native U.S. citizen.
Yeah, that's right.
I think
I never lived in another country besides USA. I visited Mexico, but that's about it. Never lived out of the United States territory.
Well, I think it's a mix of ignorance and bigotry when people do that, because just because you're raised one way doesn't excuse bad behavior. And I know that's not what you were saying, Barb, but if you don't grow as a human being and check your own internalized racism or bigotry, then that's on you. Like if you're going around spouting or repeating racist or bigoted lines and you get corrected multiple times,
but Jenny,
then at some point in time you can't fix stupid. That's just all there is to it. You can't fix stupid.
If they stay in that environment and they don't move away from it and they don't see that other people are different, it was such a slap in the face for me when I moved to Delaware. I was like, I'm glad I moved to Delaware because I never realized how slanted I was.
Yeah.
Well, I was so damn glad to get away from my big, huge Catholic family trying to keep me on their thumbs all the time. So,
but Barb,
if you don't move away, you don't know there's anything else, or you don't want to know, right?
That's the second one. So in the era of the Google machine, I have to call BS at that point. Now when we were growing up, and more specifically where you grew up, and moving from a very small town to a deal and with no Google machine, obviously, that sort of thing. Obviously, the only way you learned about the world was going out into it for the most part. I mean, you could read newspapers and stuff like that, but it was a lot harder. But now in 2021,
now
there is zero.
No excuse.
There's no excuse. It is it is willful ignorance now.
Yeah.
There is not a part of the United States that isn't
There's
connected
no
to
excuse.
the internet,
Or,
except for maybe the Unabomber's
Right.
cabin in Montana.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's zero excuse to be ignorant now. You choose to be.
I have to go, guys.
Yeah.
See
Barbara's
ya.
gonna-
Be safe.
we probably need to sign
Hopefully,
off.
it will be painless.
Yes. Thank you, Barbara. We're glad
Okay.
everything's working out at home, and
Yep,
we'll see you next week.
okay.
Everyone, this has been a very great, it's been a good conversation. I think we, had answered some questions, I guess, or hopefully educated someone. And I'm sure, hopefully people who are out there who have been watching us, I'm not sure what to say.
Kind of learn how to speak or question things when they see someone different than their color skin.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but that's the root of almost all of the challenges that we are seeing is people's unwillingness to accept just people who aren't like them,
Mhm.
and to
And that
Jenny's
is brought in since they're small. Like my grandkids, my firstborn grandchild, whenever he would see a color person, like a Black African American, he would get scared and he would not get near it. So I had to take the time and explain to him, that's another buddy. Hey, go give him 5. Hey, go tell hi to the little boy, because he will see them differently. But that's up to us as human beings, instructing the kids and directing them to the right path. My granddaughter as well, I have to let her know whenever she sees somebody different, that they're human being as well.
Hey, Jenny, and I know we got to wrap up, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, don't you think that I mean, we're us three that are left on here have lived in Texas or from Texas, and they have dealt with things a little bit differently whenever things like this pop up. So for an example, Dallas has always saw things green. That's just Dallas. If it's an issue and it impacts green, they tackle it.
Right.
And for most part, Charlotte sees things green, but it takes a long time for them to kind of address it. Don't you think some of the things in Charlotte are because of a lack of corporate leadership? Whenever we have things like what you talked about at the beginning of the show, the transgender bills or whatever the issue is, whether it was ICE raids, we really lack the corporate leadership here of all the big Bank of America, Wells Fargo, LendingTree, all the big companies here should get together and say, this is unacceptable, because when they say
I think North Carolina has a great divide between the state of Charlotte and the rest of North Carolina.
Sure.
So the people up in Raleigh, the Republicans that propose these bills, typically are coming from rural districts that base their decisions on absolute ignorance, and there's no other way of saying that. So there's no scientific or medical reason to ban transgender girls from sports. It's just it's pure ignorance. There's no cases of transgender girls in any state in the union or even in the world overrunning girls or women's sports. It just hasn't happened. In fact, there's a great story. We don't have time for it, but it proves how ignorant they really are. But I think even with the North Carolina or Charlotte big corporations like B of A and companies like that can put pressure on Raleigh, and they need to put pressure on Raleigh not to do this. Just as we saw in 2016, how catastrophic it was. It's and it's just demeaning to our state that we can't that we can't grow past something like that as a people. Like, you're elected to represent everybody. That includes trans kids. I mean, like you are specifically targeting a population and saying, you're not worthy of my support, that I'm going to banish you from all sports teams. And that is one of the most ignorant things, because it's not based on anything factual. But I think you are right from the fact that Texas in general, not always, because they're going through this.
Not always.
They've got more anti-transgender bills up in their Congress right now than we do. They've got, I think, 5. up for vote.
Mhm.
And it's just it's stupid. It's a retaliation is what it
Yeah.
is. It's just a pure guided deal. And I think the same way with a lot of things in Charlotte.
Mhm.
Charlotte, I believe, wants to do the right thing. But you have old Charlotte and you have new Charlotte. Like you said, we have the native North Carolinians that are very proud of who they are. But the problem is a lot of what they're proud of is kind of shameful and
Yes.
has kind of a bad legacy.
Yeah.
And just like native Texans, there's a lot of white native Texans that are very proud of some of the awful things that white people have done in that state, that they continue to do in that state.
Yep.
And we should say, you can be proud of your country, but at the same time, when you see egregious errors, you should address them. It's like, you can be proud of your family, but if one of your kids is screwing up, you still got to address that kid screwing up. You can't, you like your 14-year-old Mama Ruth, you can't just, you can be proud of him, but at the same time, if he's setting fire to the living room every other day, you still got to correct it. You're like, Beho, I love you, but you can't set fire to our living room.
That's where the chocolate comes in.
And then you got to whip out the chocolate, and it got to be better whipped than damned, And so, as a society, when we see part of our some of our siblings, like the Republicans right now, doing something so stupid, like we have so much things to tackle, and they are spending taxpayer money.
And something
they're
stupid.
getting paid to do something like this. Like that's not our money's worth. That's not a good value. You could be spending that time figuring out school finance, balancing how we're going to do the vaccine distribution. There's a million other things I can think of.
Keep in mind that money is coming out of us.
Yeah.
But they're getting paid to do this. And so that's the worst thing, is that we're paying them to do this. And this is just bad governance. This is the worst kind of deal. And whether it's discriminating against any community, is we need to be investing into the Latinx community. We need to be investing into Black businesses. We need to be promoting and facilitating things for growth for rural Black and Latinx families that own farms. And there's a huge amount of the 50, I think it's 154 or 54,000 small farms in North Carolina. Many of them are owned by Latinx and Black families. And we need to worry about helping them and making sure they have access to technology and all. There's so many other things we could be doing with that time and that money, other than chasing down trans kids and banning them from sports. Like it just seems so ignorant. It just seems ignorant beyond belief that in 2021, we're having this discussion. Like we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be. We should be past that. I'm over it.
I agree. But like we'll see how much longer they keep doing these shenanigans.
In fact, if I was in charge of the Republican Party, instead of going after communities of color and LGBT people, I'd be trying to figure out how to reassign my priorities to help those intersections of life. Well, because if it is our future, if we're going to be a current minority majority country, which is inevitable because of birth rates and everything else, that in the next decade or so, white people are going to be the minority, and specifically white Republicans. Let me tell you, if I was in that situation, I'd be going, well, how do I make them allies? How do I make what does it take for me to change my situation to where they'll vote for my party? And it's a real simple deal. Do good by all.
But
go by the golden rule.
But I think we can. There are members of that party, and we don't have them on here enough, but there are members of that party that see that writing on the wall, that they are becoming even more and more kind of a party of just a few people that are dying off. And there's some young ones. I mean, I know we've got people saying, oh, we've got a huge younger movement, but even with the younger Republicans, transgender, LGBTQ, those issues are not really big issues with them. And so even with them, they're not the number one issue like they are with certain other. But anyway, it's kind of like this catch-22 because I enjoy seeing them unravel, but at the same time, I hate seeing what they do because they're like a cat that's get thrown into water where it's just like, and they're going to do damage,
Well, the issue is it's costing people lives and livelihoods, and bad governance and what they're elected to do is serve all the people, and they're public servants. There are employees. So then, the General Assembly, the National Congress, they work for us, and they're supposed to work for us, and they're supposed to report to us every election. They're applying for, as you said, they're applying for a job. An election, you're applying for a job. You're saying, I've got this skill set. This is what I'll do if I can get elected, or this is what I promise I'll try to do. And you're supposed to do that. And one of them, a big no-no in democracy is targeting people. I mean, it should be. We should have a mentality nowadays that if you're targeting somebody, that is taboo. And for some reason, there's too many people in this country that still think that this kind of behavior is okay, and there's too many people that enable it. And specifically in the Republican Party right now, it seems like the home of predominantly most of the bigotry. And I'm gonna keep hammering this home because there is not one Democratic legislature anywhere in the United States, not one Democratic representative that has proposed an anti-transgender bill this year. It is 100% a Republican Party member that is suggested these 80 bills and proposed these 80 plus bills. In 2021, not even in 5 years, in 2021. And in the same way with the Latinx community and the support of Republicans for the ICE raids and all this kind of stuff and so many other horrible things. I'm going like, why aren't we empowering the Latinx community? Why aren't we, if they are 20%, if they're 1 out of 5 Americans, why aren't we uplifting that community?
So I keep going back to, I wish there was some way, we'd never do it, but I wish there was some way we could somehow have an eye for an eye approach. I don't know how you do it because as a Democrat, our parties just doesn't do things like that. We don't do things to hurt people. We do things to move things forward. But I always think of George Lopez, and then we'll wrap up on his comedy. He has this line in his comedy that always, so they will learn. It's like, you need to teach them a lesson so they will learn. But do you want to waste your time teaching them a lesson?
Then that's bad governance on our part. It's tempting as it is. As tempting as it is to just. I think it was Alabama where there was a female representative that proposed basically an anti-male. Yeah,
like a Viagra bill or something. I think it was. It was something like that.
It was something very. It was something that just drew all the. Just shock and awe of the deal. And the reason she said it's I knew it wouldn't pass. I knew it wouldn't even get out of committee. The issue was to point out the hypocrisy of the mostly men in charge of the legislature in Alabama, mostly white men that were trying to control women's bodies and reproductive rights. And she goes, it's just as preposterous to control your reproductive rights and your sexual function and your sexual health. It's when it's flipped around, and I say this all the time, if you want to teach a cis straight male the ability to consent, make them spend a whole evening in a gay bar. And they'll learn boundaries real fast. And I think what most of these very conservative, very misinformed, ignorant people need is an education on how to treat people. Because I think what they're afraid is when the others get in control, we're going to do to them what they've been doing to other people for 400 years in this country. And it's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
It's going to happen.
No, it's not.
It's coming from a space of ignorance. It's coming from a space of fear and a very woeful, sad misinformed space. And I think what we have to do is proceed, and it's like I said, it's tempting to do the eye for eye, but obviously we're not going to do that. We barely,
it's a waste of our energy. It's a waste of our talents. We've got other things
it's fun to
focus
fantasize
on.
about.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's just something that I think, you know, I always think about when I see things like this. So we do need to wrap up because we have gone over, and we want to thank everyone.
To the same level of our enemy.
Yes.
We're way above them.
But sometimes it is nice to think, you know, as our friend Joel Oldham used to said, when Michelle Obama says, when they go high, she doesn't necessarily mean, she means under the table, you can still kick them. Remember he said that? And it was like, so I still want to kind of, you know.
Well, a great way to retaliate is vote them out of office.
Exactly. That's the best.
Do the hustle, and do the work, continue to point out the hypocrisy, because this is an extremely ignorant, gross hate bill. It's a hate bill. It's targeting a community to score political points.
It's a hate bill because they're also doing the same thing. They're also doing the same thing for the past 3 weeks already towards our Latino community, our Hispanic with the 287G. They're trying to bring it back. And they're trying to force our sheriffs to accept it or adopt it again. And it's out of, you know, that's crazy. I mean, we can't do that. Allow that.
Well, y'all, this has been a great conversation. I want to, let's go around the Brady Bunch screen, which is very easy. St. Bernie, St. Bernie, Jenny, and Mama Ruth. So St. Bernie will be.
Let me say hi to all our audience, everyone that commented on our Facebook Live. Thanks, Grace McLean. Thank you, Cindy Lopez from Texas. Hey, girl. Thank you. Lynn Palma, she's a white girl that speaks Spanish. She's my friend. Thank you, Mari Chuy, for joining in. And thanks everyone that I know y'all are watching but don't like to comment.
All right, so who goes first? Jenny, Mama Ruth.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, I'm not going many places right now. My car is in the shop, and in fact, I got pretty bad news. That's why I went off camera. So I'm not going to talk about it on air, but I think it's going to be pretty bad. So I will be chilling, doing some video stuff here. We do have a NOW meeting coming up April 7th, which is the first Wednesday of the month. I'll be doing some remote pride work and some other things, but I'll be here for the indefinite future for a little bit till we get my car sorted out.
Awesome. All right. Well, I am changing from Cinderella to a housewife and a mother today. I'll be doing some cooking and kind of rearranging the house. Today's my fourth son's birthday. He's turning 20.
Just to count.
I know. I'm like, so I'll be preparing his favorite plate. He hasn't called me or said anything yet because he doesn't know his favorite food. And I usually cook their favorite, whatever they like to eat. And I'll probably just be baking a cake, or I'll run by Manolo's and pick up one. That's about it. I have a lot of allergies going on. There's a lot going on outside, so I'd rather keep myself inside and just enjoying the rest of the week.
Well, excellent, y'all. I just want to remind you once again, next Wednesday, our last show of March, will be What is Real Southern Heritage? We will talk about Southern heritage and what is real Southern heritage. I hope we can all agree that it's not just people with Confederate flags. That's not Southern heritage. That's traitors who lost a war. Has nothing to do with Southern heritage. And so we'll be talking about that next week. And then, of course, our schedule is out for April that we posted online, or will post online. We'll be talking about cancel culture. What is cancel culture? We'll be talking about why border kids scare lazy Americans. That should be an interesting show. Our dogs people too. We'll talk about Mama Ruth's little addition to her family. And then I really want to talk about a topic that I have been looking at for about a year. Since I have been stayed home in quarantine, I've been watching a lot of PBS. And if anyone goes to PBS, and I'm a member of the Passport Club because I donate like $15 a month, and you can go online and you can see old shows or shows. And I went to PBS and I looked at all their shows, and they're all white, 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 white. There's one show in North Carolina that has a Black lady who hosts it. It's about the weekend in North Carolina. But every single one of those shows is white. Now, Patsy's Mexican Kitchen is not based in North Carolina. I think it's made out of somewhere. That's really the only like Hispanic show they've got on PBS. And I started to think about it. And then they have Downton Abbey, all these old, they buy all these like English shows. Yeah, and they buy all these English shows. None of the shows are really like diverse shows. And so I thought—
Did you question them? Have you sent an email? Have you questioned?
No, I haven't. But I don't even think that people really realize that PBS really is an all-white station, and it's funded by taxpayers and people who donate money. And I was very surprised when I watched it that they need more diversity on PBS, because for many years that was where many of us could see diversity. But now you only see diversity during like a Black History Month show or a Hispanic Heritage Month show or a specific show about something. You don't really see, and one of the reasons that I don't like to watch like a lot of English shows, like the ones that are like history, even though I love history, I don't like to watch a lot of period pieces, is because whenever they do like period pieces in England, there's all white actors, because that was what was there. And so I always say, is that a way for them not to hire, Latinos? I mean, and so I
that's like, how we always see movies with beautiful body shaped women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hardly ever see a fat booty out there on a prime
show.
So, but we have to kind of raise our voice and find out what's going on.
Yeah.
We have to be more inclusive.
I know with PBS, I always forget that PBS still exists, for one. I mean, I haven't watched PBS since I was a really, really little kid, and I was watching Sesame Street.
Wait a minute, wasn't that the one that had the Black guy that had half man, half skirt?
No, he had a dress on. That was Billy Porter.
Yeah,
but he was coming out on PBS.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I mean, he'd been out of the closet for years.
Yeah.
No. I'm not saying coming out of the closet. He had a show and he's dark. So wasn't he coming out on PBS?
No. He made an appearance on one of the shows on
Sesame Street.
Sesame Street. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now Sesame Street, he was a guest on there because they have a lot of pop icon guests over the years for however many decades it's been on. But Sesame Street's always had a point to have very diverse hosts and guests. But that's but in general, and it's the same way with NPR, National Public Radio, and PBS has the same disease. For one, a lot of their programming, and bless their hearts, is exceptionally boring. Exceptionally boring. It's got a very niche market. That's why it's very rarely watched anymore, and it's kind of sad. But I think you're right. I think because they haven't updated their programming for so long, I think it's just that they're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And if they really want to find more sponsors and more public funding, they really need to update their programming. I don't think it's a subject of not wanting to be diverse. I think some of it's funding. I think some of it is the people that are in control of a lot of these stations. Now, I will say the Amarillo PBS station did a really good job of having some really good programming. But the guy that ran the state programming for that station was a friend of mine. He was also a gay man, and he sought out diverse programming. Well, that's and so but you have to be intentional with your programming. It's kind of like Fox News, and in a lot of other deals. Your programming is decided by your your station director and so many other people, and PBS I think is kind of stuck in what I call the national organization itself is stuck in a time warp. I think some of the local stations around the country have done a better job with their local public. They have they have national programming like the Downtown Abbey and all that kind of stuff. And I think they had some success with it 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Mhm.
And so like a lot of people, they're gonna just run that right into the ground, and
Well,
and they've gone past their prime.
Well, that's one of the shows. Well, obviously you can tell we have a lot to talk about on that show. That's one of the shows we'll be doing in April. So once again, I will be somewhere. Camping season starts this weekend. I'm very, very excited. So I want to thank everyone for joining us, and thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Mama Ruth. Thank you, Barbara. Stephen, we'll see you next week, and we'll also post the date of the show that we have. It will be evening show, and we'll be talking about the gun violence epidemic once again, but we'll be specifically about assault weapons, about Joe Biden's assault. Mom Ruth, you want to say something?
Watch the news.
I'm sorry?
Watch the news. South Carolina is trying to present a bill about having everyone sign up as militia. So they would have excuse, it says here. I'll send it over so you can read it. So we'll have a part of that topic so we can speak about the RNA.
Well, you know, I just, who would have thought we'd be the normal ones in America? So it was just, so anywho, with that being said,
I'm serious. It says South Carolina. Look, it says South Carolina senator suggests everyone be made militia member.
Yeah.
Imagine.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a all right.
Because
Well,
at the end of the day, they want the government to confiscate any of your weapons, because at the end of the day, the federal government cannot disarm a standing army.
yeah. They're taking our guns away. That's just
Oh my gosh.
all right.
I just can't.
And you know, we used to jokingly do the Beto dance. Remember those days? And so we'll have to start the show with the Beto dance.
I just can't.
All right. Okay. With that said, let's end the show because we've gone way over. So thank y'all very much, and we'll see you next time on Coffee and Pandusa. Stay on everywhere else.
Next Wednesday. Bye.
Yes, next Wednesday. Bye.